Smile at me and pretend you are my boyfriend. Just 5 minutes. That is all I am asking you. Please. Emma Hartwell said it without breathing, standing there in the rain, her apron soaked through, hair plastered to her face. Her hand had closed around the sleeve of a stranger who, until that exact moment, had been doing nothing more than drinking his coffee in peace dry, under the awning of a cafe on the edge of Riverside Park. She had not chosen him for any reason in particular. He was simply the first bench in the park that had someone sitting on it. The stranger did not pull away, even though she was dripping rainwater all over his sleeve. He set his cup down slowly. He looked at her for a full second, the kind of look that measured whether the woman soaking his jacket was dangerous or just desperate. And then he did something she did not expect. He smiled, just barely, and he took her wet hand in both of his, with the ease that nobody should have with someone they just met. "So what is my 5-minute girlfriend's name?" he asked quietly, without letting go of his coffee cup. Emma. She did not dare look back toward the park entrance where she had left Tyler behind, shouting something she could no longer make out. Emma Hartwell. James. He tucked a strand of wet hair behind her ear, a real boyfriend move, so real that Emma forgot to breathe for a second. James Callahan. Pleasure to meet you, even if the circumstances are a little unusual. I am sorry. I am so sorry. This is completely crazy. I never should have just grabbed you. Like James tilted his head toward her, like he was telling her a secret. And over her shoulder, he locked his eyes onto something that was getting closer. He is coming. Smile at me. Emma did not think. She smiled, with eyes full of a fear no smile could completely hide. Breathe. And follow my lead, James murmured, squeezing her hand with the kind of steadiness that felt like years of practice. I have got this. You just do not let go. I do not even know your name, she whispered back through her smile. I told you, James, and you are my girlfriend, have been for years. Now act like it. Tyler Morrison came to a stop about 10 feet from the bench. His tie was crooked, his dress shoes were ruined by the rain. He was breathing hard like a man who had just sprinted halfway across a park chasing something he refused to let go. Emma. His voice came out sharp, cutting through the sound of the rain. What the hell do you think you are doing? I am with my boyfriend Tyler. Emma was surprised by how steady her voice came out, considering half that steadiness was borrowed from a stranger's grip. Can you not see that Tyler narrowed his eyes? He looked James over from head to toe. What he saw made his lip curl. Seriously, Emma? He let out a short, disbelieving laugh. A flannel shirt, no tie, a cheap watch, half a cup of coffee. This guy does not look like he could take you to dinner at a food truck. And half an hour ago, you did not have a boyfriend. Half an hour ago, you were having dinner with me. So this is the great guy you dumped me for. Half an hour ago, we broke up, Tyler. Emma felt her voice start to tremble, but she did not look away. That happened first. Everything else is none of your business. And you are already out here with this guy. Tyler jabbed his chin in James's direction, without dignifying him with a full look. On a park bench. In the rain. Real fast rebound Emma. Could not even wait 5 minutes, huh? Excuse me, said James. No raised voice, no aggression, just a calm that somehow weighed more than shouting. You are making my girlfriend uncomfortable. Your girlfriend. Tyler finally looked at James directly. He took in the plain watch, the no-name flannel, the easy posture of someone who did not seem to have anything urgent to lose. I do not know who you are, buddy, but you are stepping into something you do not understand. I understand it fine. James did not shift an inch on that bench, though his tone sharpened by just enough to matter. A woman told you no, and you followed her across a park like that word needs to be repeated until you like the sound of it. Tyler stood there for a moment with his mouth open, not quite able to form a comeback. Emma felt something loosen in her chest for the first time since she had run out of the restaurant. This is not over, Tyler said at last, already backing away. He aimed it at Emma, his voice loaded with a threat he did not finish turning into words. We will talk about this later, when you are done with your little scene. You are going to regret this. He walked away through the trees, not running but close. Emma watched the back of his navy blazer until it disappeared around the bend near the fountain. Only then did her hands start shaking. It was like the fear had waited inside her politely until it was safe to come out. "Breathe," said James, not letting go of her hand. "It is going to pass. My hands shake too when the adrenaline drops all at once. It is not fear talking anymore. It is not fear." Emma looked at her own fingers trembling without her permission. "It is embarrassment. Everyone in this park just watched me beg a stranger for help. I did not see anyone begging." James reached over and offered her the paper napkin that had been sitting under his cup. "I saw a woman solving a problem with whatever she had available. That is not embarrassing. That is surviving with style." With style. Emma let out a shaky laugh. Laugh, half something closer to tears. "I grabbed your sleeve without even asking." With or without asking, it worked. James shrugged. "And for the record, I did not mind as much as you might think." Only then did she realize she was still standing in front of a stranger with her hand inside both of his. That hand, instead of feeling wrong, had held her voice steady for the last several minutes. She pulled it back quickly, suddenly self-conscious. "I am sorry," she said again. "Truly. I do not even know how to thank you for this." "It was insane. I know that. If you want me to just go, I completely understand. The 5 minutes are up." James checked his watch. "Without any hurry. Actually, I would say we are barely at 2, he said. Emma stared at him, not quite following the game he was still playing. "There is nobody left to fool," she said quietly. "Tyler is gone. You can let go whenever you want to." "The agreement was 5 minutes," said James, as though he were explaining the terms of a serious contract. "And I happen to be someone who keeps his word. We still have 3 left." She laughed, a short, startled laugh that escaped her chest before she could decide whether she was allowed to laugh. It was the first real laugh of the whole strange afternoon. "So what do you do with the 3 minutes that are left over?" she asked. "Normally," said James, pulling out the empty chair across from him at his small cafe table, even though they were technically on a park bench with no table at all, a purely theatrical gesture that made her laugh again. "You have a cup of coffee. That is what real couples do. I am not your real girlfriend. Not yet," said James. And something in the way he said it, light, not heavy, not quite joking either, stayed with Emma longer than she would have liked to admit. "Do you always buy coffee for strangers who ruin your afternoon?" "This has never happened to me before," James admitted. "I am pretty good at staying calm in a boardroom, but playing emergency boyfriend is a first. I am a fast learner, though. You were very convincing. I had a demanding scene partner. He gave her a sideways look. And a very motivated supporting villain to keep things believable." Emma laughed again. A real one this time, easy and clean. It felt like the dread of the afternoon had finally decided to go somewhere else. "Thank you," she said, genuinely. "I do not know what I would have done if this bench had been empty." "You would have found the next one," said James. "And some other poor guy would have had the exact same luck as me." She still had Tyler's voice in her chest. The white tablecloth restaurant 2 blocks from downtown, his eyes on her like a stage note she was failing to follow. And here she was, sitting next to a stranger on a wet park bench, and somehow it felt more real than anything from that dinner table. "Do you want to tell me what happened?" James asked without pushing. "Just if you want to." "Sometimes saying something out loud takes the edge off it. It is not a pretty story," said Emma. "Stories on a park bench do not have to be pretty," he said. "Just true." And Emma, without quite knowing why, started from the beginning. Tyler had called the restaurant himself, 2 blocks from the main plaza downtown. He had worn the tie he saved for impressing his boss. "You are going to meet Richard tonight," he had told her, adjusting his collar in the hallway mirror before they left. "He is the regional VP. He is deciding whether I get the director title this year, so be on your best behavior." "What does that mean exactly?" "You know what it means." He had smoothed a strand of her hair that was not actually in the way, a gesture that was correction, not affection. "Do not talk too much. Do not bring up your job. These people do not want to hear about a coffee shop, Emma. She managed a small neighborhood bakery and cafe. Had for 3 years. In the car on the way there, Tyler had walked her through the whole evening like a director briefing an extra. When Richard asks what you do, keep it short, he said, eyes on the traffic light, do not go into detail. And if he brings up finance or development, change the subject. You do not know that world. I can read a balance sheet, Tyler. I run a business. I did not say you are not smart. I said it is not your world. He gripped the steering wheel. This night matters to me. I am just asking you not to make it complicated. And what would make it complicated exactly? Sometimes being yourself, he said, without any visible cruelty, which Emma later decided was precisely what made it hurt the most, that he said it like advice. The dinner started the way Tyler wanted. He carried the whole conversation while Richard nodded with his wine glass. This quarter, we closed well above projection, Tyler was saying, puffed up with pride. Give me the northern region. Richard and I will guarantee the same numbers next year. Better. Ambitious kid, Richard said to Emma with a condescending smile. Is he always this intense, or just when the boss is watching? Emma smiled like a well-rehearsed background player and chose not to answer. And what do you do, Emma? Richard asked with the courtesy of someone filling a silence, rather than genuinely wondering. I run a bakery cafe in Westwood, she said, chin up, because she was not ashamed of her work, even if Tyler was. Going on 3 years now. How charming, said Richard, already scanning the room for the waiter. Tyler squeezed her knee under the table, not warmly. Emma is thinking about her next move. Tyler jumped in with a nervous laugh. A bakery, you know? It is a good start, but obviously not a long-term plan. I never said I was looking for my next move, Emma said quietly but clearly. Not the time, Emma. Tyler smiled tight toward Richard. Sorry about that. She gets a little stubborn when she feels put on the spot. I am not stubborn, Tyler. I am just telling the truth. The truth is not always what you bring to the table, he said under his breath, and then recovering his smile for Richard, things of couples, you know how it is? Emma had said nothing. She had been swallowing answers for 2 years with Tyler and had plenty of practice. The entree arrived, and with it the worst moment of the night. Hey, Emma, said Richard, his eyes already soft from the wine. Is it true what you do is all hands on baking things, helping customers? That is right. He chuckled, without real malice, but without any care either. Funny, he started and left the sentence hanging there with a smile that finished it for him. I am going somewhere too, Emma said, without dropping her gaze. Just in a different direction. Emma Tyler hissed, his smile already breaking apart. Enough! No, Tyler. You are the one who needs to stop. She turned to face him, and her voice was shaking now, but not with doubt, with 2 years of stored-up clarity. You have spent this entire dinner asking me to make myself small so your boss sees you as big. And I am done making myself small. You are making a scene, Tyler said under his breath, but loaded with the edge she knew well. In front of Richard. In front of everyone in this restaurant. You made the scene, she said, when you told me not to talk about my work because it embarrassed you. I am not embarrassed. His face was already going red. Then do not act like it. Emma stood up. Her napkin dropped to the floor. So we are clear for the record in front of your boss. I was not with you for your title or your restaurant choices, Tyler. I was there because I thought you cared about me. Tonight I found out you care about what I look like standing next to you. Those are not the same thing. Emma, sit down. He was barely holding it together now. We will talk about this at home, like adults, not here. We have talked enough. 2 years of enough. She picked up her bag. Enjoy the rest of your dinner. I seem to have lost my appetite. She walked out of the restaurant with her face burning and the shame of the whole table sitting on her skin like a second outfit. She had not even made it to the corner when Tyler's voice came after her through the crowd. Emma! Emma, you do not just walk out on me like that. This is not your decision alone. Come back to the table. But she did not turn around. She crossed through the park without a direction, looking for any shelter. She found a bench that was half occupied, and a stranger with a coffee cup and a patient expression. The rest James already knew. Richard said James back in the present after she had finished telling it in pieces with pauses. Richard, what's his last name? I have no idea. I do not care. Emma hugged herself even though it was not cold. The only thing that matters is that Tyler treated me like furniture for 2 years and I let him. Until tonight. You were right not to let him anymore, said James. With a seriousness that had none of the lightness from before, nobody has the right to ask another person to shrink themselves to fit inside their ambition. Do you think running a small bakery is not much? Emma asked, almost a challenge, the embarrassment of the restaurant still raw. James looked at her for a longer moment than she expected, weighing the question carefully. I think he said at last that there are people who measure others by what they earn, and people who measure them by how they treat someone who cannot do anything for them. Your ex is the first kind. I hope I am not. Emma did not know what to say to that. Only when the cup was already warm between her palms did she notice. James had ordered it from a cart vendor while she was talking. He had not interrupted her once. And this, she said, looking at the coffee that had appeared from nowhere. I flagged down the cart guy a while ago, James said. You were so wrapped up in your story you did not even notice. I did not want to stop you right when you were finally getting it out. I am embarrassed to admit it, she said, but I spent 2 years convincing myself that I was the one who was overreacting, that Tyler was right to ask me to dial it back, that this was just how those dinners worked, that this was just how his world worked. She was quiet for a moment. Until tonight, I had not realized how tired I was of making myself smaller. Nobody should have to train themselves to fit at somebody else's table, said James. If someone finds you too much, exactly as you are, the problem is not your size. It is the table. Emma let that sentence turn over in her mind much longer than she would have liked to admit. The 5 minutes ran out a long time ago, she said, looking at the coffee she was holding that she had never ordered. I should probably go. You could, said James, without pushing. But the coffee is already paid for, and it would be a shame to let it go cold alone. That is a trick. It is persuasion, he corrected her with half a smile. A trick means I am hiding something from you. I am telling you in plain words that I would like you to stay 10 more minutes. Emma laughed again, that short, involuntary laugh that came before she could stop it. She sat back down. A little closer than strictly necessary. 10 minutes, she said, not one more. The 10 minutes became 20. James, without her asking, confessed that he hated sweetened coffee. I only take it with a little cinnamon, he said, wrinkling his nose at his cup. My grandmother made it that way back in a small town in eastern Tennessee, where sugar was saved for things that actually needed it. She said sweetening coffee was just covering up the good stuff with something easy. A woman passing by with a cart of roasted sweet potatoes and kettle corn stopped next to the bench. You two want the usual, James? She called out, already reaching for 2 without waiting for the answer. 2, please, Miss Donna. And put it on the tab for the lady. She saved my afternoon from being completely uneventful. The vendor Miss Donna gave Emma a conspiratorial wink, the wink of someone who had watched enough park bench stories to know which ones were worth paying attention to. This boy here, she said, lowering her voice, does not sit with just anyone. Good to see you brought somebody worth sitting with. She moved on, humming to herself. Emma looked at James with one eyebrow raised. You know everyone in this park, do you not? Most of the regular vendors, he said, without making it sound like anything particular. Emma filed it away anyway, like a piece of a puzzle she was not ready to finish yet, and 20 minutes became half an hour. She found herself talking about her work without being asked. You have no idea what the smell of fresh bread and good coffee in the morning does to you when you open up the shop, Emma said. And my landlord, Mr. Kowalski, he brings us pierogi on the first Friday of every month because he says we keep the whole block from feeling lonely. I think he just likes having someone to share lunch with. It is getting late, Emma said, finally checking her phone, and genuinely surprised by how much time had passed. I really do have to go. One more excuse, said James, looking up at the sky where the afternoon was turning a deep orange over the rooftops at the edge of the park. Look at that light. It would be a crime not to watch it for at least 5 more minutes. Another 5 minutes, Emma said, raising her eyebrow. You are making a habit of this. It is a staircase, said James with zero shame. 5 minutes for a desperate ex, 10 for a coffee I did not ask to be paid back, half an hour for a bakery story that turned out to be more interesting than I expected. And now, 5 more for light that only lasts this time of day. He looked at her sideways. Every step has its reason, Emma Hartwell. There is always one more if you want to stay. And you want to stay. I have been inventing reasons for half an hour, said James, still looking at the light over the buildings. You can draw your own conclusions. Emma sat quietly. She felt something warm moving through the embarrassment that had been sitting in her chest since the restaurant. What brought you to this part today? She asked, looking for safer ground, before I hijacked your whole afternoon. I come here a lot, said James, with a vagueness that did not strike her as strange right then. Good coffee nearby, the bench is comfortable. Good place to think. What does a stranger think about on a park bench on a Saturday afternoon? Work mostly. James stirred his coffee slowly. But today I was thinking that I had not had a conversation that was not about contracts or deadlines in about 2 years. And then a woman grabbed my sleeve and asked me to rescue her Saturday. He paused. You asked me to fake it for 5 minutes. That is not the same as rescuing the whole afternoon. And yet, here we still are. Emma looked at him and noticed for the first time the details the urgency had not let her see before. Clean hands, but calloused from real work, not desk work. A plain watch. Clothes that belonged to someone who had not gone out to impress anyone. And yet every vendor who passed the bench gave him a nod of genuine recognition. Not the nod for a regular customer. Something more than that. Can I say something without offending you? She asked. Go ahead. You have working hands, not office hands. A no-brand watch. Clothes from someone who was not trying. Emma narrowed her eyes at him with a slight smile. And yet, every person who runs a cart or a stand in this park greets you like they know you well. An ordinary guy does not get that from a whole park full of people. Maybe I am just friendly, said James. Maybe, Emma said, not quite believing it, filing the thought away for later. Do you work near here? She asked with genuine curiosity. Around here, yes, said James. Something in the brevity of his answer, the way his eyes moved toward the fountain instead of staying on her face, made Emma archive the question without pushing further. She kept it anyway, without knowing why it mattered. Do you have anyone waiting for you? He asked gently, changing the subject. Besides the ex I scared off. I live with my mom, Emma said. My dad passed away 8 years ago. She does alterations for people in the neighborhood. I run the bakery. Between the two of us, we cover rent every month. No cushion, but nothing missing either. That does not sound like a small life, said James, with a seriousness that had no pity in it. That sounds like 2 women holding each other up. I know what that costs. What is a man who takes work calls from a park bench on a Saturday actually afraid of? Emma asked. James laughed softly, caught off guard by the question. Being alone, he said, more honest than he had planned to be. I know. Boring answer. Everyone says the same thing. It is not boring if it is true. It is true. He looked at her sideways. And you, Emma Hartwell, the bakery lady. What are you afraid of that? Today's embarrassment sticks, she said, without overthinking it, that I end up being the woman some guy spent years asking to make herself smaller, that I keep being that woman. That woman does not exist anymore, said James. She stepped off this bench half an hour ago when she said no, once and for all. Did you start with nothing too? She asked. James was quiet for a moment, deciding how much of the answer still belonged to this afternoon, this bench, this woman he had just met. Less than you would guess, he said at last. But that is a story for another day, if you want to hear it. Is there going to be another day? Emma asked, and the moment the words were out, she wished she could take back the hope that had crept into her voice. James smiled slowly, looking at her directly for the first time without any joke behind his eyes. I hope so, he said, because I have been climbing this staircase of excuses for half an hour. Emma Hartwell and I have not found the step where I want to get off. Tyler Morrison came back 3 days later, and this time it was not an accident. Emma was behind the counter of her bakery, measuring a customer for a custom cake order, when she saw him push through the glass door. His tie was crooked again. His jaw was set with the same determination he had worn across the park. I need to talk to you, he said, not greeting anyone, ignoring the customer at the counter entirely. I am working, Tyler. 5 minutes, he said, and the words landed wrong because she had borrowed them from somewhere else now, from someone else. That is all I am asking. Her boss and co-owner, Diane, was watching from behind the espresso machine with the focused attention of someone choosing not to miss anything. Is that the one who had you editing yourself for 2 years? She asked, low enough for only Emma to hear. Because he looks like a man who needs someone to remind him of his place. I reminded him. Now he just needs to hear it again. Then go, said Diane with a smile that made her opinion completely clear. And if he gets out of line, I have a rolling pin and I am not afraid to use it. Emma stepped out to the sidewalk with her hands less steady than she would have liked. Tyler was waiting there with his arms crossed. Who is that guy from the bench? He demanded, no preamble. None of your business. It is absolutely my business. You were with me for 2 years, Emma. I am not going to stand here while some random guy on a park bench messes with your head and you call it a new relationship. I was not with anyone to make you jealous, Tyler. Emma crossed her arms too. I was not even thinking about you when I sat down on that bench. I was thinking about getting away from you. That guy, what is he? A barista? A sales rep? What? Tyler let out a dismissive laugh, the kind that was meant to wound but mostly showed he was rattled. Because he looked like he did not exactly have a 5-year plan sitting there all relaxed like nothing in the world was pressing. I have no idea what he does, and it does not matter, said Emma. And even if I knew, I would not be telling you because it is not your problem. It is my problem because you were my girlfriend for 2 years. Tyler's voice climbed and a couple of people on the sidewalk turned to look. And I am not going to let some guy who plays it cool on a park bench put ideas in your head. The only person who put bad ideas in my head was you, Emma said, not lowering her voice this time. Every time you asked me to be less of myself so your boss would think more of you, that has nothing to do with this. It has everything to do with this, Tyler, because that man on the bench treated me with more basic respect in half an hour than you managed in 2 years. Her voice cracked just slightly but held, and that hurts more than anything you ever said out loud. Tyler was quiet for a moment, calculating his next move the way he calculated a sales pitch. You are going to regret this, he said at last, already stepping back toward his car, which was parked illegally at the curb. Women like you do not stay good alone for long, Emma. And when you figure out that the bench guy was just a fun afternoon for him, I'm going to be with someone a lot better for me. Better meaning more trained to disappear in your world when it is convenient, Emma said. Tyler, she shook her head almost with pity. You are going to keep looking for the perfect woman who smiles on cue and never says anything off script. And the day you find her, you will not even notice that you are the one who turned her off. I genuinely hope, Emma said, with a calm that surprised her, that you find someone who treats you the way you treated people when you had nothing to prove. See if you like it. She walked back inside before he could answer, hands shaking, head steady. She did not know until later that same week that the bench would call her back. It was Diane who sent her out on an errand that afternoon. Take these invoices to the supplier on 5th, she said, pressing a folder into Emma's hands. And do not rush. Or rush as slow as the long way takes you, if the long way happens to go where I think it might go. The long way does not go anywhere. Uh-huh, said Diane, not believing a word. Well, fix your hair before you leave, just in case the long way has opinions. The long way led her right past Riverside Park, and there on the same bench, holding 2 cups as though he had been waiting for days, was James. I saved yours with cinnamon, he said, extending a cup before she even sat down. though technically I have no proof that is how you prefer it. How did you know I would walk by? I did not, James admitted. I have been coming here with 2 cups for 3 afternoons. The first day I drank both and had a terrible night. Emma laughed and sat down next to him without thinking twice about it, with a naturalness that would have felt impossible 3 days earlier. Tyler came to the bakery, she said, before he could ask. He wanted to know about you. The stranger from the bench. What did you tell him? That it was none of his business. She took a sip of the coffee, feeling the warmth settle in her chest like borrowed calm. Though, to be honest, I did not have much to tell. I do not know what you do. I do not really know much about you except that you like cinnamon, and you are good at inventing excuses to keep someone from leaving. James was quiet for a moment, watching the steam curl up from his cup. That can change, he said at last, if you give me another afternoon. How many steps left on that staircase? As many as it takes, said James, and this time there was no lightness behind it. Emma, I am going to be straight with you. The first 5 minutes were a performance. I owe you that. But after that, every minute has been real, and I am having a hard time pretending I do not care what happens after this bench. Emma felt her chest tighten in a way she had not felt in a long time. Not with Tyler. Not before Tyler. I am having a hard time too, she admitted quietly. They sat there for a while without talking, watching the park. A real couple taking photos by the fountain. A kid chasing a pigeon that had no intention of being caught. A street musician tuning up near the footbridge. You know what is the strangest part of all this? Said Emma at last. I have known you for 5 days, and I already feel like I understand more about you than I did about Tyler in 2 years. That does not reflect well on Tyler. No, Emma laughed. It really does not. Can I ask you something serious? Go ahead. Why did you stay with someone who treated you like that for 2 years? Emma thought about the answer without rushing it. Because I was afraid that was the best I was going to get, she said at last. My mom always says women like us learn to settle early, so it does not hurt as much when life does not offer us more, she shrugged. I spent 2 years believing that. Today, I am not sure I still do. Do not believe it, said James without any uncertainty. You deserve a great deal more than settling Emma. The following Monday, Emma went back to the park without any errand to justify it, only the quiet hope of finding 2 cups waiting on the same bench. She found them, but she also found a man in a sharp suit sitting 1 bench over from James, speaking to him with an urgency that did not leave room for jokes. Mr. Callahan, I really do need your signature before 5 o'clock, the man was saying, not noticing Emma until it was already too late. The tenants in Unit 3 are threatening to walk if we do not finalize the lease today. Roger, we have discussed this, James said with a tone that sounded unfamiliar to Emma. Steadier, more tired, more accustomed to problems that had nothing to do with coffee and park benches. Send the documents to my email. I will look at them tonight. But the previous building owner left everything in such a mess, and you are the only one who can, Roger. James cut him off with a quiet look toward Emma. Not right now. Sorry, Mr. Callahan, I did not see you had company. Roger lowered his voice, though not quite enough. I just need to know that if we do not get the building situation sorted before 5 corporate is going to Roger, James said again. Same word, 1 step firmer. Email, thank you. The man with the briefcase moved on, but not before giving Emma a quick, curious look. The look of someone who recognized a face that should not be in this particular story. Who was that, Emma asked, as the weight of something unspoken settled between them. A business associate, said James too quickly, looking toward the fountain. Nothing major. Emma was quiet for a moment. She felt for the first time that the staircase James spoke about so easily had a step on it he did not want to show her. A business associate doing what she asked at last. Because men with briefcases do not sprint across a park to find ordinary people about a building situation. James administered a couple of businesses, he said with a precision so careful it began to feel for the first time like something deliberate. Nothing that would interest you. It interests me, Emma said. I have been telling you everything about my life, and you have not told me what you actually do. Not once. James took his time stirring a coffee that had already gone cold. I manage properties, he said, at last, each word measured like someone walking on a floor they are not sure about. Commercial properties, retail spaces, office buildings. It is less exciting than it sounds. Then why did it take you that long to say it? Because the moment people find out what I do, James said with an honesty that arrived suddenly, almost like a confession, they start treating me differently. And I have spent 3 afternoons enjoying being treated like nobody in particular. Like someone you grabbed for 5 minutes on a bench, not like the guy with the briefcase. Are you saying you hid something from me? Emma felt something cool move through her, even with the warm cups still in her hands. I did not hide anything that was not true, James said carefully. Nothing I told you this week was a lie. But not everything was the whole truth either. No, he admitted, and that is exactly why I am telling you now. Before a nervous employee with a briefcase tells it worse. Emma stood up from the bench suddenly, a different embarrassment from the restaurant. This one came from having let herself believe that someone could genuinely be interested in a bakery owner from Westwood. I should go, she said, voice tight. Emma, wait, please. It is fine. She hugged herself even though it was not cold that afternoon either. You have every right to keep what you want private. I just understand better now why it was so easy for you to pretend to be my boyfriend. For you, it was low stakes. A fun afternoon with the girl from the bakery before going back to your world of associates and building contracts. And I was stupid enough to take all of it at face value. It was never a game, James said, getting to his feet, but Emma was already walking, and the rest of what he wanted to say stayed in his mouth with no one to hear it. She walked 5 blocks home without looking at the traffic signals, certainty and doubt arguing with each other the whole way. That night, in the small kitchen of her apartment, Emma told her mother everything. The two of them were folding laundry under the warm light of the kitchen lamp. Maybe he had reasons not to tell you all at once, her mother said, with the kind of steadiness that comes from holding a household together alone for 8 years. Not everyone who keeps something back does it to deceive you, baby. Or maybe he just wanted a fun afternoon with someone who would not cost him anything, Emma said, folding a shirt harder than necessary. I kept telling myself all the way home that I had done the right thing by walking away. That any sensible person would have left the moment she found out the stranger from the bench had employees and buildings and a whole other world tucked behind a cup of cinnamon coffee. She pressed the shirt against her chest. But underneath all of that something keeps insisting that I did not run because of him. I ran because of the old fear. That this turns into another version of the same story. Tyler already happened to me. I am not letting it happen again. And do you really think it is the same thing, her mother asked, watching her from the corner of her eye? Because the way you talk about this man, honey, he does not sound like the same kind of person. And besides, she went on refolding a sheet with hands that had been tired for years, you told me yourself that this man defended you from Tyler without knowing a single thing about you. That he bought coffee 3 afternoons in a row without knowing whether you were going to show up. People who are just looking for a fun afternoon do not do that. That is what a man does when he is already attached, whether he wants to admit it or not. And if I am wrong again, Emma said. Then you are wrong, her mother said without any drama. And you pick yourself back up the way you picked yourself up after Tyler. You already know how to do that. What you have not learned yet is how to let someone treat you well without immediately looking for the catch. And that, she said, with a patience that only comes from surviving harder things that you learn with time too. Emma did not answer. She finished folding until the pile was gone. That night, for the first time in a week, she did not think about going back to the park the next day. She did not go to the park the next day, or the day after. On the 3rd day, James was waiting outside the bakery when she finished her shift. No coffee this time. Empty hands. And an expression she had not seen on him before. The face of someone who has rehearsed what they are going to say and still cannot find the right place to start. I did not go to the bench, he said, because I figured you would not be going either. You figured right. Emma stood on the sidewalk, not quite deciding whether to walk or stay. Emma, I need you to give me 5 minutes. James took one careful step forward, the way someone moves towards something they are afraid to startle further. 5 minutes. I know I owe you more than that, but it is what I am going to ask for today. She stood there on the sidewalk with her canvas bag pressed against her chest, deciding nothing. 5 minutes, she said at last, because I owe myself understanding why you hid something before I decide whether to walk away for good. I am not Tyler. James's voice came out steadier than he expected. And what I am going to tell you is not a hiding place. It is a fear I have been carrying longer than I want to admit. They walked together in silence to the same park, same bench. This time, the space between them felt different from the first afternoon. Start wherever it hurts the least, Emma said, when she saw him searching for words without finding them. We are not in a hurry. We have both been late to enough things because of this bench already. I started with nothing, James said, looking at the fountain, not at her. Easier that way. My dad had a shoe repair shop 2 blocks from here. Same building where I opened the first real business years later. I grew up stitching soles before school. By 15, I could fix anything you put in front of me. Shoes. Emma felt something shift in her chest with an irony she had not expected. I sell shoes. I know, said James with a sad smile. It was one of the first things I liked about you. That you talked about your shop the same way I used to talk about my dad's repair stand back when I was still willing to say it out loud around people with money. And now you have money. James took a moment. Now I have more than I need, he said, and there was no apology in it. No pride either, just plainness. My dad's repair stand became a small shoe store. The shoe store became a bigger space, and that space over time became most of a city block. Emma, I own nearly all the businesses you have walked past around this bench. The coffee cart that sold you your first cup that afternoon, the building where Roger is arguing about a lease right now, most of the retail on this side of the park. Emma said nothing for a moment, letting each word land slowly, not all at once. Owner of all of it, she said at last, quietly, as if finishing the sentence for herself. The coffee, the building, most of the block. And I was asking you to pretend to be my boyfriend because I thought you were the only person on the bench with nothing better to do. And your father? She asked, with more care than curiosity. He still has the shop. James's voice dimmed a little. He passed away 9 years ago. Never saw the second building, just the first. He died thinking I was going to inherit a repair stand. And in a way, Emma, that is exactly what I did. The stand just grew larger than either of us planned, and I never quite got used to how large it grew. Why not? Because the moment real money came, people changed before I did. James looked at his hands. There was a woman a few years back. I was close to proposing. She found out what the second building was worth the same week I was going to ask her. After that, I could never tell if she wanted me or what I represented. When I ended things, she still thought I was the one making a mistake. He shook his head. After that, I started testing people without them knowing it, dressing plain, not saying what I did until I knew them well. It is a bad habit. I know it is a bad habit, but it has saved me from a few heartbreaks, he said. And with you, maybe at the start without realizing it, but 10 minutes in, it was not a test anymore. 10 minutes in, I just wanted to keep listening to you talk about your bakery. Why not say that from the beginning? Because I have spent years watching what happens the moment someone finds out how much I have, James said, with a weariness that was older than the conversation. They shift. Even when they do not mean to, they shift. They sit differently. They talk differently. They calculate differently. And that first afternoon you did not know who I was. You grabbed my sleeve without knowing whether I could pay for my own coffee. You begged me for 5 minutes and then treated me like a regular person, not like a bank account, not like a resource, like a man sitting on a bench drinking coffee. Those 5 minutes, Emma, were the most honest thing that has happened to me in years. He turned toward her, finally holding her gaze. I did not lie about anything I felt. I just took too long to tell you who I am because I was afraid that the moment you knew, you would stop treating me the way you did that afternoon. and instead I let you leave thinking you had been someone's entertainment. That was not my intention, he said, quieter now. And I'm sorry, genuinely sorry. But I promise you that nothing I did was performance. Not when I defended you from Tyler, not when I kept the coffee warm, not a single afternoon I came back here without knowing whether you would show up. None of that was staged. He took a breath. The only thing I faked was the first 5 minutes. Every single thing after that was completely real. Emma watched the fountain where 2 small children were dipping their hands in the water, completely unbothered by the conversation happening a few yards away. I need to think about this, she said at last, standing slowly. Not because I do not believe you entirely, but because I need to be sure I am not making the same mistake I made with Tyler. I understand that better than most people would, James said, not moving from the bench. It took me 9 years to trust anyone after losing my dad. I am not going to ask you to do it faster than feels right. Take whatever time you need, he said, and there was something in his face that showed what it cost him to say it and let her go anyway. I will be on this bench every afternoon it takes, Emma, with or without coffee. That I can promise you without any fear of being wrong. Emma walked away slowly, without turning around, and still the whole way home she felt the weight of that promise following her like a warm shadow. She came back 4 days later, not because she had finished thinking it through. She realized after 4 days of thinking about only one person that pretending it was coincidence made no sense anymore. James was there, as he had promised, with 2 cups that had already gone cold twice while he waited. I thought maybe you would not come, he said, standing when he saw her. I almost did not, Emma admitted, sitting down next to him. Closer than the last time. But I figured something out over these 4 days, James. He waited. Tyler treated me badly, knowing exactly who I was. A bakery owner with nothing to offer his career, and you treated me well without me knowing a single thing about what you had. That is not the same thing. That is the opposite. Emma, let me finish. She took a slow breath. I was angry because I thought you hid something to play with me, but I thought about it longer, and I understood that you did not hide what you have to deceive me. You hid what you have to protect yourself from someone wanting you for exactly that reason. And at the bottom, that is the same shame I felt every time Tyler asked me to make myself smaller. We were both hiding something, just in opposite directions. James listened to every word without interrupting. The same attention she had come to recognize and no longer doubted was real. I want to tell you something I have not said yet, he said when she was done, and I want you to hear it completely before you say anything back. Go ahead. The first day when you sat down on this bench and asked me to pretend I had spent 2 years keeping exactly that from happening, anyone getting close, after a couple of situations where it turned out the woman wanted my account more than my company, I stopped believing anyone could see me without seeing what I had first. He reached over and took her hand slowly, the way someone holds something that could break. And then you sat down here without knowing who I was? Asking me for 5 minutes and treating me like a human being, not an account, not a prize, just a man on a bench with his coffee. That, Emma, was the most honest thing that has happened to me in years. And I do not want it to turn into something different now that you know the truth. It is not going to be different, Emma said, her voice trembling with something she did not try to hide. I do not want you for what you have, James. I want you for how you treated me when you thought you had nothing to offer. Are you saying you want to keep doing this? I am saying, Emma smiled for the first time, that if you keep buying me cinnamon coffee and keep inventing reasons for me to stay 10 more minutes, you are going to have to accept that we stopped pretending a long time ago. What do we do about Roger and Miss Donna and all the people in this park who already watched us play fake couple and are about to watch us be a real one? James asked with a smile that was no longer hiding anything. Let them think what they want. Emma settled in next to him with her head resting against his shoulder. No hurry to get up from that bench. The only explanation that matters is the one you just gave me, he corrected quietly. We can drop the formal thing now. Do you not think? I think so, said Emma, laughing, though it is going to take a little practice. James looked at her with a warmth that had nothing left of the first afternoon's joke. He squeezed her hand a little tighter. "Then I am going to ask you properly," he said. "No ex chasing you, no park bench, pretending to be coincidence." He straightened, finding her eyes with a seriousness that made her hold her breath. "Emma Hartwell, will you let me be your real boyfriend?" "Not 5 minutes. As much time as you want to give me." Emma laughed, eyes full of tears that weighed nothing at all. "Yes," she said, "but with one condition." "Name it." "We keep coming to this bench," she said, "every week, even when we do not have a single excuse left to be here." She held his hand. "Because this is where I got to know you for real. Before I knew who you were. And I never want to forget that part." "Deal," said James, and this time, when he put his arm around her, there was no Tyler to fool, no act to keep up. Just a man and a woman on a park bench with 2 cold cups of coffee and all the time in the world ahead of them. Months later, the bench in Riverside Park was still the place where everything came back to the beginning every week. Saturdays at 5 without fail, with 2 cups waiting, one with cinnamon and one plain, and a couple who no longer needed to pretend anything, to sit there and talk about shoes and bread, about a father who repaired soles 2 blocks from the park, and a mother who hemmed curtains under a kitchen lamp. Miss Donna still came by with her cart every Saturday at the same time, and every Saturday she told the same joke like it was new. "You two still here?" she would ask, even though she already knew the answer by heart. "Still her, Miss Donna." "Same as always." And she would shake her head with a satisfaction that had seen enough park bench stories to know which ones lasted. This girl, she would tell anyone nearby who asked, sat right down next to him one rainy Saturday and begged him to pretend to be her boyfriend, just to get away from some fool. And look at them now. He did not know her. She did not know him, and neither one of them had to pretend a single thing. "I was right here when it started," she would say. "You do not see that every day." Diane, back at the bakery, still shook her head every Saturday afternoon when Emma left. "There she goes," she would tell whoever was behind the counter. "My best employee, stolen every Saturday by a park bench. And not a thing I can do about it." But the truth was, Emma still showed up every week with the same pride she had always had in her work. Just now on Saturdays, someone was waiting on the same bench where a stranger had once held her hand steady and given her back her own voice, without knowing who she was, without knowing who he was either. Owner of most of a city block, as it turned out. But her heart he had earned, one step at a time. No tricks, no shortcuts, and that Miss Donna would say, lowering her voice like she was sharing something sacred she had watched come into the world with her own eyes, is not something you see every day.